Very warm welcome this Sunday morning here in the wonderful theater at the Art Nouveau Theater of the Hotel Dolce. And we are here now for the question and answer session. Wir sind jetzt hier für die Talkshow, auf die ihr sicherlich alle gespannt seid. You're, I think, very excited about the next question and answer session because the subject is Aloha from Hawaii. Wir haben uns diesmal überlegt, dass wir einen kleinen Schwerpunkt setzen möchten bei der Talkshow, nämlich Aloha from Hawaii. Wir haben das große Glück, dass wir 3 Menschen haben, die ganz nah mit dabei waren. Und ich glaube, das hatten wir noch nie und ich glaube, das gab es auch noch nicht bei einem Elvis-Event dieser Größe, dass wir tatsächlich Zeitzeugen haben, die uns aus erster Hand etwas erzählen können. Ich hoffe aber, ihr habt eure Fragen auch mitgebracht und ihr könnt natürlich alle Fragen stellen, das ist ganz klar. Aber wir wollen natürlich auch so ein bisschen diese großartige Show Aloha from Hawaii im Mittelpunkt haben. Aber wie gesagt, ihr kennt das, stellt eure Fragen. You know that the procedure, ask your questions, but keep a little in mind our subject, Aloha from Hawaii. But of course, you're very welcomed to ask any question you like. Wer ist es? Gestern waren hier 2 Stühle, außer dem meinen, jetzt sind hier 3. Ist nicht so ganz schwer zu erraten, wer kommt. Deshalb möchte ich ganz herzlich begrüßen auf der Bühne hier Miss Linda Thompson, Mr. Sam Thompson and Mr. Ed Enoch. A warm welcome. So good morning and a warm welcome here on stage. So good to have you, and we are very happy that you spent some time with us, answering some questions and talking about, I think, the greatest show event that happened at this century, at the 20th century. That means Aloha from Hawaii. And the reason why we thought it would be a good idea is because we have 3 different aspects, 3 different perspectives here on stage. That means, of course, you were his girlfriend at that time, Ed, you worked with him on stage, and Sam, you just got to know him and you were about to become his friend. And so this is something that I think is very interesting. So to have different angles, let's put it that way, to talk about that. And of course, the audience is welcome to ask any question. So, Linda, you got experience from yesterday. You know that there are some other questions, of course.
Such nice people, too, and such respectful questions, and I appreciate all of you. It's just, it's funny because when I reflect back to Aloha from Hawaii, I think about just being with the man that I loved and watching what he did for a living. And, you kind of forget that it was such a revolutionary airing. It was the first satellite show, the first split-screen TV show. So it was very innovative and very creative. A man named Marty Pisetta directed it, and we became friends and remained friends. We're still friends. I get Christmas cards from his wife. He passed away. But, it was just... For me, it was just being there with my boyfriend, watching what he did and loving him. And I actually gave him a song from one of my beauty pageants. When you have these beauty pageants, there's always a theme song. And the theme song for one of the pageants was Welcome to My World. So I said, listen to this song, it's really pretty. And he said, honey, this sounds like us. Welcome to my world, won't you come on in? Miracles, I guess, still happen now and then. Open up your heart, leave your cares behind. Welcome to my world, built with you in mind. So he actually did that song in the Aloha from Hawaii special, but he wasn't familiar enough with it to be secure, so he had the lyrics kind of written out on stage, and once in a while I think he had to look down. But that's a very strong memory in my mind of that time.
Ja, Linda hat gerade auch direkt erzählt, dass es natürlich für sie auch nochmal was ganz Besonderes war. Das heißt, für sie war Elvis ja nicht in erster Linie der große Superstar, sondern ihr Freund, ja, den sie liebte und dem sie zusah, was er denn da auf der Bühne macht. Das heißt, auch das war etwas ganz Besonderes in der Situation. Und vor allen Dingen hat sie auch erzählt, dass Welcome to My World, oder dieser Song, den Elvis eben auch singt im Konzert, dass Linda ihm diesen Song letztendlich vorgestellt hat, weil dieser Song eigentlich so der Key-Song war von einem der Schönheitswettbewerbe, den Linda damals mitgemacht hat. Und sie sagt, Elvis war noch gar nicht so richtig mit dem Text vertraut, sodass er manchmal auf einen Spickzettel gucken musste, der auf der Bühne war, um den Text tatsächlich sicher rüberzubringen. Und ja, wie gesagt, und sie betont halt tatsächlich, dass es für sie eben ihr Freund war, den sie liebt oder den sie geliebt hat, und dass das nochmal etwas ganz anderes ist, aus dieser Perspektive jemanden auf der Bühne zu beobachten, als wenn es eben nur der Star ist. Genau.
You know, if I may, before the show, we were in Memphis, of course, leading up to it and together, and Elvis went on this incredibly strict diet. He was on a 500 calorie a day diet. He had his meals prepared for him, packaged for him, and back in that day, you know, nobody had that done. 500 calories a day because he wanted to be very slim and look great for the show. But I was astonished that he could even perform as energetically as he did on 500 calories a day leading up to that point. And he did look magnificent, but I couldn't live on 500 calories a day. I gotta have my ice cream.
Bitte. Also Elvis war zu dem Zeitpunkt auf einer sehr strengen Diät, 500 Kalorien pro Tag. Jeder von euch, der schon mal eine Diät gemacht hat, der weiß, 500 Kalorien ist nix. Ja, sind nix. Ja, also einige nicken, ja, also nehme ich an, dass ihr da wisst, worum es geht. Also, aber er wollte eben einfach auch toll aussehen, in guter Form sein. Und Linda sagt auch, also sie hätte es überhaupt nicht verstanden, wie jemand so viel Energie auf der Bühne hat und so eine gute Arbeit auf der Bühne abliefern kann mit so wenig Kalorien über den Tag. Ja? Und selbst sie isst mehr als 500 Kalorien, weil sie möchte nicht auf Eis verzichten. Ja? Also wie gesagt, da könnt ihr euch ungefähr vorstellen, wie das aussieht, wenn man mit so einer Diät immer schön abgepackt in kleine Pakete umgehen muss am Tag. Genau. Ed, would you like to tell us how you experienced the preparation for the Aloha from Hawaii concert? Do you have any memories about that?
Well, you know, Elvis always had someone to do his music. Joe Gershow was our director, and he got us all the material that we were going to do. You never believe that, but they sent us the material, and we sort of brushed up on it before we, got to Hawaii. But we did a lot of those songs every night. And so Elvis was kind of averaging, one day, Linda, like 2 weeks a month for a long time there working. So we kind of knew the songs, but we knew that Elvis would be nervous. He was always a little bit hyped up, and I think that's why he made on 500 calories. Because he was so excited about it, and we would come up to your suite, And he was so gracious to us, and thank you, Linda and Sam. But we would go up to suite, and he would talk about it before we ever did the first night. We did a record. We recorded it the first time. So on Friday night, I think it was, we recorded the show. And Elvis said, and this really made it really unbelievable, he said, look, JD, you got to get it right. That's what he said. He said, because they're taping this thing just in case that satellite goes off on Saturday night when we did the real show. And JD said to him, well, what do you want me to do? He said, do it right for once. So it was kind of, if I might say that, Elvis was really, he was really focused. He was in great shape. He had been running. He had been out exercising and running. And I remember, Linda, his tan. He had the most beautiful tan. I said, Elvis, you look like you belong over here in Hawaii. So it was kind of a special time for him, a special time for us. But we were all on our P's and Q's because of how special it was. And I thought to myself, being raised in the country, what I was doing in Hawaii, singing with Elvis Presley, I was just taken back with that. And he did great. His singing was perfect. His high notes, he had increased his range tremendously. Linda, he had gotten to his voice was unbelievable. And I would always tell him that. And sometimes I know I probably didn't say it right. I was a little wild back then, Linda.
I think I remember.
So I probably didn't say it right to him, but I did love him so. And I did love that the good Lord would let us be a part of that, and I'll always be grateful.
Ed erzählt, dass natürlich die Songs, die in der Show gespielt worden sind, nicht alle neu für sie waren. Sie waren ja schon zusammen auf Tour gewesen, sie haben viele Shows zusammen gespielt, sodass die Songs auch nicht mehr einer wirklich großen Anstrengung bedurften, sie zu proben. Aber letztendlich war es auch so, dass Ed gesagt hat, naja, man hat aber gemerkt, dass Elvis schon auch nervös war und dass es etwas Besonderes war und eben nicht nur eine Show irgendwo, sondern er war sehr fokussiert, er war gut vorbereitet und Ed hat so schön erzählt, dass er zu J.D. Sumner gegangen ist und hat gesagt, pass auf, wir nehmen die Show auf, wir nehmen sie auf, wir tapen sie, weil es kann sehr gut sein, dass vielleicht der Satellit ausfällt und dann haben wir auf jeden Fall ein Backup, also tu mir einen Gefallen, gib dir Mühe. Und J.D. gesagt, was soll ich tun? Gibt es was Spezielles? Soll ich irgendwas machen? Und er hat zu ihm gesagt, mach's einmal richtig. Und also bei allem Humor, den wir ja von Elvis auch kennen, aber auch das zeigt ja letztendlich, dass es tatsächlich etwas sehr Spezielles auch für Elvis war. Und Ed hat auch erzählt, dass Elvis toll aussah. Er hat gesagt, eigentlich sah er wirklich wie ein Hawaiianer aus, schön gebräunt, in guter Form. Also alles in allem war es eine sehr intensive, sehr spezielle Zeit und er freut sich natürlich und ist sehr dankbar, dass er dabei sein konnte und dass er dieses Erlebnis ja auch jetzt mit uns nochmal teilen kann. Ja? Oh. Do you want to add something? Okay. So, this is your applause. Yeah.
By the way, I love looking out and seeing familiar faces. I feel like I've gotten to know several of you personally, and it's so nice to see your beautiful, smiling, familiar faces, some of whom I recall your names even. So thank you for being here. Very sweet.
So, Sam, one question for you. Because the press coverage of this event was very intensive, I think. There was a press conference and everything. The press covered the story that Elvis would love to do the Aloha from Hawaii via satellite. And you, as someone who was not at that time in the inner circle, so to say, but how did you experience this time just before the concert and when it was broadcasting?
Well, I experienced it from afar. No, you know, when I met Elvis at the end of November of '72, when Linda called and my wife and I went to the mansion, that concert was all he could talk about. He was so excited. He was already getting ready for that. And I remember vividly that he talked about Hawaii, that he had just been there and done shows, I think, Linda. And Linda had gone with him. And he mentioned to me that that night, he said, you know, we were supposed to film it, but something happened, so they put it off, and we're going back. And I have to admit that I harbored a little hope that maybe I'd get a chance to go with him in January. But I didn't. You know, I had just met Elvis, and he was dating my sister, and I was watching this unfold. So the last thing I wanted to do was be presumptuous and say, hey, Elvis, I'd like to go too, you know. But what I was really afraid of was asking my boss if I could get off, the sheriff, you know. So it didn't work out for that, but I do recall just how excited he was. And, you know, now that I look back on that, over that close to 5 years, I knew Elvis 4.5, 5 years, that may have been the most animated and excited that I ever saw him. And maybe they saw different times when he was just as excited, but I don't think I ever saw him that amped up and excited and looking forward to a show as he was the night that I met him and he was talking about the Aloha show.
So. Ja, ich habe Sam auch gefragt, als jemand, der noch nicht so im inneren Circle sozusagen dabei war zu der Zeit, wie er das denn eben tatsächlich auch erfahren hat und wie er Elvis letztendlich erlebt hat in der Vorbereitung und vor allen Dingen, wie er auch, ja, ich sag mal, die Öffentlichkeit erlebt hat rund um das Aloha vom Hawaii-Konzert. Und er hat dann gesagt, natürlich erstmal von Weitem hat er es beobachtet, aber er hat, als er Elvis kennengelernt hat im November 1972, hatte er den Eindruck, Elvis war auch so, ja, so aufgeregt, dass eigentlich er gar kein anderes Thema hatte. Und er tatsächlich darüber gesprochen hat, begeistert war und eben hat auch das nochmal bestätigt, was die anderen schon erzählt haben, dass er schon da sehr fokussiert war. Er war schon mal auf Hawaii, hatte da natürlich schon Konzerte gegeben, aber Sam sagt auch, er hatte natürlich so ein ganz klein bisschen die Hoffnung, dass er da vielleicht doch mitkommen könnte, aber er wollte auch nicht, ja, ich sag mal, frech sein, unverschämt sein und fragen, yay, kann ich mitkommen sozusagen, sondern er hat sich da zurückgenommen, obwohl, so wie er es erzählt hat, glaube ich auch, dass es ihm im Nachhinein vielleicht doch leid getan hat, dass er es nicht nochmal ein bisschen forciert hat. Aber ja, er war eben nicht dabei beim Konzert, aber er sagt auch, er hat Elvis danach nie wieder so aufgeregt und so, ja, so erlebt, dass er sich auch auf ein Konzert so gefreut hat, wie dieses Aloha vom Hawaii-Konzert. Vielleicht auch, weil es eine besondere Herausforderung war. Genau. Okay. So, und vielleicht gibt es schon die eine oder andere Frage aus dem Publikum. Da müsst ihr mir jetzt bitte helfen, die Kollegen mit den Mikrofonen an der Seite. Ich sehe jetzt nicht so gut, wer eine Frage hat. It's time for questions, so if you have a question, feel free to ask them. My colleagues are on their way with the mics.
Hello. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello guys, you look good, very good. I'd like to know, how was it, especially backstage, before the show starts, with Elvis, he put his suit on and got a makeup and his headdress, and especially after the show. How was it backstage to feel the power, and I don't know. So how was it? Maybe
You were
Ed,
backstage.
Are you asking
maybe
me?
Ed can answer this.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
You were the only one backstage. I was in the audience.
Well, you know, Elvis had a lot of energy about him, and especially when he was excited and wanted to work. He was like that in Las Vegas a lot. Almost every night, you'd be backstage with him, he'd be fighting with Sam or one of those guys and just kind of getting himself, you know, beefed up. He'd already dressed, he was ready to go. But before he went on, he would come together and I'd have to get all the stamps together and we'd sing Sweet, Sweet Spirit. Yeah, every night. So I can't quite believe that I deserve anything experience like I had, and but to find him so deeply involved in his meditation and the spiritual things, and he wanted to hear us sing Sweet, Sweet Spirit. We're the last thing in the world I want to hear him sing. And but it was that's exactly what it was backstage. That's exactly how it was. Every night. Every night.
Die Frage.
Yeah, I was sometimes backstage, but that particular evening, I wanted to be in the audience. So that night, I can't speak to what he was like backstage, but you're right. The other times, you know, he was fired up, he was geared up. He was also single-focused. You know, you could say anything to him. Oh, did you see the house is on fire over there? And he wouldn't even know it. It was like, I'm going on stage. This is what I'm doing. He was so single-mindedly focused before he would go on stage. And he was running through all the numbers, running through all the lyrics, running through the music, where he was going to go. He did that every night before he would go on stage. He was a very serious-minded performer. Afterwards, I can only tell you that it was cozy. And, you know, he was very tired, usually after a show. He was tired, but he was also still wound up. So it would take him a while. You know, when you've got so much energy, so much adrenaline going on stage, you can't just come off stage and go, well, that was a good show, good night. So he would still be awake and wired for a while, and he would have to come down from that sometimes natural high, you know, from being on stage. So it would take him a while to unwind, and he was always just such a grateful person. You know, he was grateful that people had come out to see him, grateful that the show went well, and just a sweet-spirited man, which is why that song is so perfect. There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place because Elvis was part of that sweet, sweet spirit.
Ich versuch's nochmal. Ed hat auf die Frage, was zum Beispiel vor der Show passiert ist und nach der Show passiert ist, backstage geantwortet, dass natürlich eigentlich das Prozedere auch bei der Aloha vom Hawaii Show genau das war, was es immer war bei den Shows. Ja, also das machte eigentlich keinen Unterschied. Es war allerdings auch so, dass kurz bevor die Show angefangen hat, sie sich zusammengestellt haben, Elvis zusammen mit den Stamps, und sie hinter der Bühne ganz für sich Sweet, Sweet Spirit gesungen haben. Dass sie tatsächlich auch in diese Art, ich sag mal, der Stimmung kamen, auch sich nochmal wirklich fokussieren konnten. Und auch das ist etwas, was Linda auch gerade gesagt hat, dass nämlich man hätte Elvis zu diesem Zeitpunkt auch sagen können, guck mal, da brennt ein Haus. Das hätte Elvis wahrscheinlich gar nicht registriert, sondern er war so fokussiert, wir würden sagen, so eine Art Tunnel, in dem er da war. Er ist nochmal die Musik durchgegangen, er ist die Texte durchgegangen und so weiter und so fort, sodass er wirklich ganz professionell und sehr ernsthaft sich auf das Konzert vorbereitet hat. Und Linda sagt, nach dem Konzert war das natürlich was anderes, ja. Da war es dann, da waren die beiden dann eben wieder zusammen und da ging es nicht darum, dass man sich fokussiert und im Tunnel ist, sondern da waren sie ein Liebespaar und das ist nochmal eine ganz andere Geschichte. Ja, aber zusammenfassend nochmal auf die Frage zu antworten, sehr professionell, sehr fokussiert in der Vorbereitung und gleichzeitig die Spiritualität immer dabei. Genau.
Hi, Linda. Hi. Do you feel that Elvis was one of the kind of people that constantly needed a challenge to work towards all through his life? And had he had more after the Aloha, he would have possibly lived longer? He was
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, he had so much to give and was such a multifaceted talent. You know, he had the potential to be an Academy Award-winning actor. He just never had the material given to him that would have allowed him to exhibit that talent. He wanted to come to Europe. He wanted to perform all over the world for his fan base around the world. So yes, he was limited, and that really led to a lot of frustration for him. And I believe that, you know, everyone who is given, and I believe we all, by the way, are given our own unique talents. I have this little cross in my kitchen that said, "When I stand before God at the end of my life, may I have used every ounce of talent that God has imbued in me." And I think that's so true. We all have to discover our own talent, whether it's caring for children, or if you're a nurse or a doctor, or whatever your talent is, you know, that it's incumbent upon us to serve others. And I think that Elvis's talents were so unique and so multifaceted. And when he felt stymied, when he felt like he couldn't give everything that he had, it was very frustrating for him. And, you know, it's due to a lot of reasons that he wasn't able to exhibit the talents that he was given. But absolutely, I think it would have added to his longevity.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Also in der Frage ging es darum, ob es oder wie es gewesen wäre, wenn er auch nach Aloha vom Hawaii noch sich Herausforderungen gestellt hätte oder ob es überhaupt eine Möglichkeit gegeben hätte. Und Linda sagt, ja, es wäre auch so wichtig gewesen. Sie ist davon überzeugt, er wäre durchaus in der Lage gewesen, einen Oscar sozusagen auch zu gewinnen oder zu erreichen, wenn er das richtige Material gehabt hätte, als Drehbuch zum Beispiel. Oder aber auch die Tatsache, dass er natürlich eigentlich eine Welttournee machen wollte, nach Europa auch kommen wollte, was nie stattgefunden hat. Und da das nicht stattgefunden hat, hat das natürlich auch zu einer großen Frustration geführt. Ja? Und Linda hat auch gesagt, es ist halt tatsächlich frustrierend, wenn man das Talent, was einem Gott gegeben hat, eben nicht vollständig nutzen kann, wenn einem nicht die Möglichkeit gegeben wird. Und ja, und das ist tatsächlich das, was Elvis nachher auch gefehlt hat, aus ihrer Perspektive auch, dass er eben keine wirkliche Herausforderung gehabt hat. Ja.
Hi, Linda. I just wanted to say, do you ever think to yourself, if you was with Elvis on the final days, like, do you ever like imagine or think, like, being with him?
Yeah, I get comments a lot and questions a lot about, do you think, I think what you're actually suggesting is that had I been there, maybe he would still be alive.
Yeah.
Because I cared for him so diligently. Yeah. And, you know, you can't think that way because fate has a way of working itself out no matter who's there, no matter what the circumstances are. And I don't know. I don't know if it would have made a difference. His own father, Vernon Presley, came to me the day of the funeral, and he actually sat at my feet. He was not a humble man necessarily. Mr. Presley had a lot of built-in defenses and guarded. He was a very guarded man. I called him Mr. Presley just out of respect. It was Elvis's father, Vernon. And he actually sat at my feet and he said, I know that you kept my boy alive. Don't think that that got past me. I know that you cared for him so well that you actually saved his life and kept him alive, and I wouldn't have had him for these last several years that I've had him, and I wish you had been with him. I think we'd still have him. And, you know, even though that was somewhat flattering and reinforcing to me, it's disturbing to think, you know, that it could have made a difference and then I wasn't there. But, and two, I don't think anyone is to blame. It's just the way it worked out. I don't think there's anyone to blame except Elvis himself. He was self-destructive, you know, and he's the only person who could have saved himself. And sadly, the help wasn't available to him in order to do that.
I read once that he was eating an apple when he was playing the piano, and he choked on it, and you saved him from choking. And that plays in my mind all the time.
Yeah.
I can't forget that bit I read about you years and years ago. So, I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
You never know.
Thank you.
Ja. Die Frage war, ob, wenn Linda bei Elvis noch gewesen wäre, um die Zeit herum, als Elvis gestorben ist, ob Linda der Ansicht auch ist, dass sie ihn hätte retten können, dass er nicht zu diesem Zeitpunkt gestorben wäre. Und Linda sagt, dass man das Schicksal eben auch nicht beeinflussen kann. Ja? Dass es unabhängig davon ist, wer da ist, wo man ist, was das Schicksal für einen vorgesehen hat, das passiert auch. Und es ist eben keinem auch die Schuld zu geben an dem, was passiert ist, mit Ausnahme von Elvis selbst. Und ja, und dass das natürlich etwas ist, was sie auch mitgenommen hat. Und sie hat berichtet, dass bei der Beerdigung von Elvis Vater Vernon auf sie zugekommen ist und gesagt hat, Linda, ich weiß, dass du meinen Sohn so ja eigentlich bewacht hast, du hast ihm mehrfach das Leben gerettet und ich bin sicher, dass wenn du da gewesen wärst, wir ihn jetzt noch hätten. Und, aber Linda sagt auch ganz klar, dass auch wenn das sehr, ja, wenn das schon ein Kompliment war, sehr schmeichelhaft war, dass Vernon diese Ansicht vertreten hat, dass sie trotzdem der Ansicht ist, dass eben es tatsächlich schicksalhaft war und unabhängig von denen waren, die zu diesem Zeitpunkt bei Elvis waren. Ich sehe nichts, ihr müsst mir sagen, wo die Frage ist. Ja.
Hallo, ich habe eine Frage und zwar nach 73, die Konzerte, die danach kamen, warum Elvis immer dieselben Lieder gesungen hat und nicht mal andere Lieder halt.
Ja, okay.
Ja, danke.
I think this is a good question for you, Ed, and for you, Sam, because the question was why Elvis always sang the same kind of songs in his shows, in his concerts, and because he had so much in his repertoire to sing, but the set list was very similar in each show. So maybe you can answer that question.
Well, Elvis always did what he wanted to do, and when he wanted to do it. And Elvis kind of, I really believe, I mean, we had that 6 years or so with him, and you know, it was night after night after night, and I think Elvis loved those songs, but I really think he didn't want to learn anything. A song didn't come along that really caught his eye, caught his heart. Elvis always said, I'm going to sing as long as I can sing, but I'm going to sing what I can feel in my heart. I suppose that's why he kept singing those songs. You know, and I love you so. Oh my goodness, Linda. And I wish I could hear him sing it again, because he sang it from here. I think that's why he kept singing the same songs, or a lot of the same songs, is because he felt in his heart, and and you had to hear it from his voice.
Sam, what have you experienced about that?
Well, I think Ed's exactly right. Elvis was a strong personality, and that should never be ignored. You know, it was Elvis Presley's show, and Elvis Presley picked the songs he wanted to sing, and he picked the songs he wanted to record. And there were battles about that, you know. But I remember the night, and I'm sure Ed does too, that Elvis pushed Tony Brown off the piano and just sat down and started playing Unchained Melody. And nobody knew it. We all just stood there with our mouth open. Joe Gershio, I thought he was going to drop the baton because there were no charts. And it was just Elvis on the piano because Elvis decided that night he was going to play Unchained Melody. And he did. And he hit every note. But, you know, I think Ed's exactly right. Elvis sang from the heart. He sang songs that meant something to him, which is why he did Sweet, Sweet Spirit before every show. That meant something to him. And he also sang songs, I think, that he knew, certainly thought, perhaps knew in his heart, meant something to you. Because he would start a song and you could just see the audience start rippling in recognition. So let's never forget he sang those songs for you.
Also es ist tatsächlich so gewesen, dass Elvis natürlich immer derjenige war, der entschieden hat, welche Lieder er gesungen hat. Und er hat immer gerne auch die Songs gesungen, die ihm selber etwas bedeutet haben, an denen er Spaß gehabt hat. Aber beide sagen eben auch, er hat eben auch die Songs natürlich für sein Publikum gesungen. Das heißt, das kennen wir alle, bestimmte Songs, dann ist man direkt in einer anderen Stimmung, ja, dann wird direkt etwas transportiert und das, wie gesagt, genau das war für Elvis auch sehr wichtig. Und wie gesagt, Sam hat eben das Beispiel gebracht, dass er durchaus auch ganz spontan entschieden hat, welches Lied er singt. Also zum Beispiel, er hat sich dann auch schon mal einfach ans Klavier gesetzt, hat den Pianisten zur Seite geschoben, hat gesagt, komm, mach mal Platz, ich setze mich jetzt hier hin und hat dann zum Beispiel einfach Unchained Melody gesungen, ohne Proben. Joe Gershio, der Orchesterleiter, war ein bisschen perplex, ja, weil keine Noten da waren, nichts da waren. Das brauchte er aber auch nicht. Ja, er hat dann einfach gesungen und wir wissen alle, Unchained Melody von Elvis, da muss man einfach nichts mehr dazu sagen, oder? Habt ihr auch eine
Hi
Frage?
there. I'm over here in the back. I just wanted to know. Hi. I just wanted to know if you guys know what Elvis did with all the stuffed animals and the brass.
Well, I have a couple of souvenirs. Yeah, you know, he appreciated all the gifts and everything that people would bring him. He got a lot of teddy bears, and he very often would donate them to orphanages around the country. Like if he got a plethora of stuffed animals, he would make sure that they got to children who might not have stuffed animals like that, because of course he didn't have room for everything that he was given. I have a really cute little paper mache doll that was given to him that was so adorable. It's like a Holly Hobbit sort of thing. And I still have that in my bedroom. And I have a little collection of soft sculpture dolls that I collected when I was with Elvis. But most of them went to needy children, deserving children.
Very nice, thank you.
You know, if I might say, for your benefit, there were so many of those rabbits and dogs and bears and hound dogs. They would just cover the stage, and they would box them up. And I don't know if I ever told you before. We would every summer in August, we would go to the hospitals, and we would take a day, and we would visit the children's ward, and we would go to each room, and we had that box on great big old carts on them gurneys where you lay on. We had them box stacked up, and we would take those rabbits and dogs and bears and teddy bears. We would take those to the people, those kids, and then we went downstairs to the older folks, to we would carry scarves. Elvis would have scarves, and sometimes he would autograph a couple, and we would go and hand those out. So yeah, he took care of everything you ever gave to him, and they were very nice, very, very nice.
Great.
Also alle Stofftiere, die auf die Bühne geworfen worden sind, sind eben natürlich nicht alle auf Graceland gelandet, das kann man sich vorstellen. Aber Elvis hat sie eben gespendet an Waisenhäuser zum Beispiel. Linda sagt, so ein paar Stücke hat sie noch aus der Zeit, die so ganz besonders waren auch. Und Ed sagt auch, also sie haben nicht nur an Waisenhäuser gespendet, sondern eben zum Beispiel auch in Krankenhäusern, auf Kinderstationen und haben aber auch gleichzeitig zum Beispiel die älteren Leute dort bedacht, haben dann auch andere Dinge weitergegeben, die an Elvis verschenkt worden sind. Er hat immer sich sehr gefreut darüber, aber ganz klar, jemand, der so viel ja, ich sag mal, Geschenke bekommt wie Elvis, der kann das nicht alles selbst behalten. Und es ist auch wieder ein Zeichen für seine Haltung, für seine Großzügigkeit, dass er es eben dann auch weitergegeben hat an die, die es eben auch brauchen können.
You know, in keeping with the charitable Elvis and things he did for charity, St. Jude Children's Hospital was one of his favorite charities, and he used to donate to St. Jude Children's Hospital all the time. In fact, Aloha from Hawaii, the proceeds from the audience ticket collection went to the Kui Lee Cancer Foundation. There was a beautiful singer in Hawaii called Kui Lee, and there was a song called I'll Remember You. Do you know that song, I'll Remember You? So that's where Elvis got that song, and all of the money went to the Kui Lee Cancer Foundation from Aloha Weiss.
Also das St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, ganz berühmtes Kinderkrankenhaus, das war so Elvis, ich sag mal, Lieblingsprojekt, das er sehr stark unterstützt hat während seines gesamten Lebens. Und Linda hat auch gesagt, ja, er war sowieso natürlich jemand, der sehr für Wohltätigkeit steht und stand. Und auch das Konzert Aloha vom Hawaii, wie wir wissen, wurde ja einem Wohltätigkeitszweck unterstellt sozusagen, also das heißt dem Kui Lee Cancer Fund, auch einer Krebsstiftung. Kui Lee hat I Remember You geschrieben und diesen Song hat er ja auch in der Show gesungen, sodass sich da auch wieder der Kreis schließt und zeigt letztendlich, worum es Elvis eigentlich ging.
Okay, a question to the Aloha from Hawaii show, which to me is the best, most amazing show that I've ever watched. And I wanted to know what is your most cherished memory of the show and the time during the show that you were with Elvis, and also of all the songs that he performed on the Aloha from Hawaii show. Did he have a favorite? I mean, they're all just awesome. I love them all, but...
I feel as you do, they were all my favorites. You know, I think probably the most sentimental one was the one that he learned just for me, Welcome to My World. So I thought that was, you know, something that he rarely did. As Ed mentioned before, he didn't really like to learn new material because it was so reinforced in his memory, the old songs that he had done, the ones that he had done so frequently on stage. It was a challenge for him to learn the new lyrics and the new music. So that was very dear that he cared enough about me to incorporate that song. But all of them, you know, I remember the jumpsuit, I remember, you know, his nervousness, I remember his focus, and it was just, I'm with you, it's the most incredible show I've ever seen. And do you remember that long cape that swept down to the floor? It was like, and he thought that was way overdone, but he knew it was a dramatic effect. And, you know, he just had such an incredible voice and such an incredible delivery, and he was so beautiful to look at. There's just never going to be another performer like him, ever.
Thank you.
In der Frage ging es darum, letztendlich, ob es einen Lieblingssong gegeben hat in der Aloha vom Hawaii Show. Und ob es ganz spezielle Erinnerungen nochmal gegeben hat, die Linda mit uns teilen wollte. Und da geht es natürlich auch, wie sie eben schon mal berichtet hat, um den Song Welcome to My World, den er speziell für Linda eben auch gelernt hat und auch aufgeführt hat. Das ist etwas ganz Persönliches, was ganz Intimes auch für sie. Und, aber sie erinnert sich eben auch an alles das, was drumherum passiert ist, ja, an den tollen Anzug, den er getragen hat, an seine Aufgeregtheit, an alles das, was da passiert ist. Und sie hat gesagt, sie wusste das eben auch sehr zu schätzen, dass er Welcome to My World wirklich aufgeführt hat, weil er eben nicht so gerne neues Material gelernt hat und geprobt hat. Und so war es eben auch nochmal was ganz Besonderes. Yeah, Ed, would you like to answer that question as well? Did you or do you have any very special memories of that show?
Well, you know, Elvis was a prankster, and he loved to do things that would just blow your mind. And so at the end of that show, we did the Hawaii show. We had to come back on stage after everybody was gone. And we had to do 3 or 4 songs, Kuipo, several songs, Hawaiian wedding song. And we had to come back on stage and do that because they were going to make a film clip of that and run some film. And so we went on stage and we all still dressed. Elvis was still dressed in that little white suit. And we started singing, Kuipo, I love you more today. Yeah, and he was singing that, and he laid down on the floor of that stage, in the middle of that stage, and sang Kuipo, like, I love you more today. And I thought that was the coolest thing, that the king of rock and roll, the greatest singer that ever sung, would just lay down. And he was tired. He was hungry. It was great. I said, Elvis, I've always wanted to do that. He said, well, come on down here and lay down. That was cool.
And Sam, in spite of Aloha from Hawaii, but under the subject of Elvis as a prankster, do you have something that you would like to share?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of things that he did on stage, you know, to shake you up, so to speak. I remember one night he'd caught me playing a guitar in Graceland and singing, and so he came downstairs and he said, if you'll leave the singing to me, I'll leave the security to you. And I said, okay. And the next tour we went out, and somewhere during the show he said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring one of my bodyguards out here to sing. And the spotlight hit me, and I almost jumped off the stage. And Elvis said, sit down, Sam. And that's on an album. You can hear it. That he actually says that. And so he would do things like that. But I want to real quickly say, you know, I grew up in the 60s in Memphis. And one of my close friends in college, Linda remembers, was a young African-American fellow who was the president of the Black Student Association, Larry Batchelor. And so Larry took me down to hear Martin Luther King's speech in 1968 at the Claiborne Temple in Memphis, and I stood outside, one of the very few white people out there, I'll tell you, and it was the mountaintop speech where he said, I may not get there with you, and Elvis loved that story, and I would tell him that story, you know, and he was a big fan of Martin Luther King and proponent of civil rights. So for me, the favorite song was the ending song, If I Can Dream, which was written by I forgot the guy, Brown, is his name, Earl Brown, and that's what Elvis told me, and he said that it was a compilation of a lot of Martin Luther King's speeches, so that touched my heart because I knew it touched Elvis's too.
Do you know that Elvis had an actual LP, a big album of all of Martin Luther King's speeches, and he and I would sit in the bedroom at Graceland and play this record, and Elvis would say, listen to this man speak. He doesn't just speak, he sings it. His voice is so mellifluous when he speaks, like, I've been to the mountaintop and I have seen the other side. So Elvis would go through the speech, he knew it verbatim, and he would actually emulate Martin Luther King. And he was so inspired by him and his peaceful nature, but also his strength in trying to make a positive difference in the world.
Das ist jetzt ein großer Bogen, den ich spannen muss, den ich übersetzen muss, aber ich möchte das gerne wirklich tun, damit alle das verstehen, weil es ging ja zuerst darum, dass Elvis jemand ist, der gerne auch mal wirklich ganz praktische Witze macht, der einfach andere Leute auch gerne mal verblüfft. Ed hat es erzählt, dass nach der Aloha vom Hawaii Show sie nochmal auf die Bühne gekommen sind, weil sie ja nochmal Einspieler aufnehmen mussten. Und bei dem Song Kupuipo muss ich nicht groß erklären, hat Elvis sich aber dann auf die Bühne gelegt und hat das gesungen. Und das war auch was, wo Ed gesagt hat, also das muss man sich mal überlegen, der King of Rock'n'Roll legt sich auf die Bühne und singt einen Song. Und Sam hat dann auch noch erzählt, dass abgesehen mal von Aloha vom Hawaii, Elvis für Überraschungen immer gut war. Er hat die Geschichte erzählt, dass Sam auf Graceland war und mit der Gitarre gespielt hat, unten im Wohnzimmer und beziehungsweise im Wohnzimmer Elvis runterkam und weil er Sam hat singen hören und hat zu Sam gesagt, okay, also wenn du mir das Singen überlässt, überlasse ich dir auch die Sicherheit, ja. Aber in einem der nächsten Konzerte hat Elvis dann auf der Bühne gesagt, so, an dem Punkt möchte ich euch einen meiner Bodyguards vorstellen, der wird jetzt für euch singen. Und wham, kam der Spotlight auf Sam und Sam musste sich dann sozusagen abducken und Elvis hat gesagt, setz dich ruhig hin, Sam. Und das gibt es übrigens auch auf dem Album zu hören. Also manche von euch kennen das vielleicht, diesen Mitschnitt. Und jetzt kennt ihr auch die Geschichte dahinter. Aber was Sam dazu gesagt hat und was jetzt der Bogen ist, der in ein ganz anderes Thema kommt, aber es geht um Lieblingssongs hier auch nochmal. Sam hat gesagt, Elvis war ja ein großer Fan von Martin Luther King. Und basierend auf seinen Vorträgen, auf seinen Reden, ist ja der Song If I Can Dream, den wir alle, glaube ich, sehr lieben. Und Linda hat auch erzählt, dass sie zu Hause auf Graceland praktisch alle Reden, alle Vorträge von Martin Luther King als Album hatten und Elvis sehr begeistert war. Und Sam, der ja in Memphis aufgewachsen ist, genau wie Linda, auch in den 60er Jahren, war 1968 bei einer der berühmtesten Reden von Martin Luther King. Und Elvis konnte nie genug davon bekommen, dass Sam ihm dieses Erlebnis weitergegeben hat. Und ihr habt es eben gehört, Linda hat das nochmal so ein bisschen auch, ja, ich sag mal so imitiert, wie Martin Luther King gesprochen hat und das fand Elvis ganz faszinierend auch. Und er hat auch gesagt, hör dir an, was dieser Mann zu sagen hat. Und ich glaube, das ist jetzt aber mein Kommentar, das ist jetzt nicht übersetzt, aber ich glaube, das spricht einfach so Bände, welche Haltung Elvis auch den Menschen gegenüber hatte. Das finde ich toll. So, wir sind fast am Ende angekommen. Eine letzte Frage hinten.
Oha, ich habe die letzte Frage und die ist eigentlich gar nicht so interessant. Ich habe eigentlich nur one question for Sam. Hello,
Dann
Sam.
stell sie nicht.
What was the response of your former boss when you went into his office and say, I'm sorry, Sheriff, I quit because I will work for Elvis Presley?
Das ist eine interessante Frage.
Na gut.
Yeah, like the first few years I knew Elvis, I was just a friend of Elvis. I was Linda's brother, and of course, you know, he bought my parents a house, and Linda a house, and me a house, real close to his father's house, and we felt like family. And at that time, I viewed him as probably my brother-in-law, you know, and we, at least from my perspective, I felt like we were family. So we were just friends, and I do cherish and relish that time. But a time did come when I was asked to come on board full time with Elvis and leave the department. And I struggled with it, maybe 3-4 seconds, and said, of course. But I remember the next day I had to go see the sheriff, and he just recently passed away, Roy Nixon. And I went in to see him, and I was just nervous as a cat. And I said, Sheriff, I said, I met Elvis Presley and been his friend for a while. He said, yeah, I know that. Because he had let me off work several times to go on tours. And so, and I was stammering around, and he said, look, what is it you want? And I said, Sheriff, I said, Elvis has asked me to go to work for him, and I'm really torn about this, but I think I'm going to have to submit my resignation. And Roy Nixon stood up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, call him and ask him if he needs 2. So help me, he did.
Ich glaube, das muss ich nicht übersetzen, ne? We're at the end of our question and answer session, but of course, last word.
May I, excuse me, may I for the final and last question? Sorry.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. So we have, one has to be the bad guy, so that's me. I'm so sorry. But the last word, of course, is up to you. So if you would love to share something with the fans, if you have a special message here for the fans, then this would be great if you could share it now.
I think Sam always says it so eloquently and so from the heart. And it's so true that Elvis's primary purpose in life and his motivation in life was to sing. If Elvis had lost his voice, I think he would have died a very early death. Because Elvis, he would say, I was born to sing. It's his life. He called it his lifeblood. He said, singing, music is my lifeblood. And he did it for you. He did it to share his gift with those he loved, and he loved his fans. So what he did, the reason he got up in the morning, or in the evening, as it were, because we were night owls, but the reason he got up from bed and arose from his sleep was to sing, was to perfect his voice. And the things that he did to preserve his voice were astounding. Before he went on every night, before every show, he did this nasal douche. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like salt water. He would put salt in water and do a nasal douche, which is highly uncomfortable, but it would drain all the any kind of impediments, mucus basically, from his throat and nose so that he would have a clear voice. He was careful about what he ate before the show so that he wouldn't burp. I mean, everything that went into the show that you wouldn't even think about, he did. And like I said, Sam knows that he did it for his fans. It was for you. He really, really loved and appreciated his fans, and that we're all still here loving him and remembering him. It must send some kind of wonderful vibration up to the universe for him today, even.
Linda sagte, dass für Elvis das Wichtigste die Musik war, das Singen war und vor allen Dingen die Musik weiterzugeben an die Fans. Und dass er alles dafür getan hat, dass seine Stimme gut war. Er hat gesagt, in dem Moment, wo ich nicht mehr singen kann, ist eigentlich mein Lebenselixier versiegt. Dann bin ich eigentlich nicht mehr ich, dann bin ich eigentlich tot. Und er hat eben alles dafür getan, dass das nicht passiert ist. Und Linda hat gesagt, und das war etwas, was eben er für die Fans, für uns Fans gemacht hat. Und auch das zeigt einfach, wie sehr Elvis seine Fans geliebt hat.
Well, I think Linda said it perfectly, and Sam, and it's so good to be with my friends today, and I've missed you an awful lot. It seemed like all the cast that we had, it seemed like that they're dropping off and they're making their journey to heaven, and a few of us are left, and we came today to make you happy if we could. But Elvis said something. But I remember I was kind of wild back in those days, and I was having a wonderful time. And we went to New York and played Madison Square Garden. And by the way, that was one of the most perfect records that Elvis ever made. It's unbelievable. And while we were there, Elvis did an interview, and it touched my heart. And I'm going to try to say it without crying. So he said, in conjunction with you folks, as long as there's a song, I've come to sing that song. As long as they have a song, I'm going to sing that song. And I knew he meant what he said. His whole life was for you, because God sent him here, because he was special.
Ed freut sich in erster Linie auch heute hier zu sein mit Linda und mit Sam, weil er natürlich gesagt hat, es werden immer weniger. Viele von den Begleitern, von den Weggefährten sind schon nicht mehr bei uns. Wir wissen das. Wir haben uns in der letzten Zeit von vielen Weggefährten von Elvis verabschieden müssen. Und er hat dann auch erzählt, dass Elvis eben auch gesagt hat, solange es Lieder gibt, werde ich sie singen und ich werde sie für die Fans singen. Und Ed betont an der Stelle auch nochmal, dass eigentlich Elvis' ganzes Leben aus Musik bestand und seiner Liebe für die Fans.
I think that we all would agree that the best way we can honor Elvis is to honor his fans, because you're the ones who are keeping his memory and his legacy and his music alive. So for us who knew and loved him personally, the best way that we can honor him is to honor you. So again, thank you.
Das ist eigentlich schon ein schönes Abschlusswort. Das, was Ed eben auch noch mal zum Schluss gesagt hat, dass Elvis eben jemand sehr Spezielles war und etwas sehr Besonderes war auch. Und Linda hat jetzt das noch mal aufgegriffen und auch gesagt, eigentlich ist es der schönste und der ehrlichste Weg, Elvis zu ehren, indem die Fans geehrt werden, die eben letztendlich sein Lebenswerk und das damit verbundene Erbe eben auch weiter transportieren. Sam, would you like to add something?
Well, honestly, I think it's just anticlimactic, because these two wonderful people here have said what I feel, and perhaps what you feel too. But I will end with just a little anecdote. In March of '77, when Elvis took his last real vacation to Hawaii, I went with him on the Lisa Marie, as did a number of people. And we rented a house in Kailua. And one of the visitors to the house was Tom Moffett, who was a big radio disc jockey in Hawaii and one of the promoters for the Aloha special. And he came over, and Ed Parker had set up an event at the Polynesian Culture Center there, and so we went and did that. And then Tom Moffett and Ed Parker and I went to the, I think they call it the HIC, but it was the event center in Honolulu where the Aloha special was. And we went on a whole tour of the place and met the general manager there, and they all regaled me with stories of that night and this is 4 years later now, this is '77. And how that if Elvis came back, he could do a week's show and fill it up every night and please as he ever could. And so we went back to the house in Kailua and we told Elvis what we had seen and done, and Ed Parker just flat asked him, in his Hawaiian pidgin language, called him brudda, brudda, you gonna come back and play here? And Elvis said, Ed, he said, I think we should come back and do another concert here. He actually said that. And I do think that things would have been different if Elvis had lived. He would have toured Europe, he would have been in Germany, and I think he would have been in Hawaii again too.
Sam hat gerade noch vom letzten Urlaub von Elvis erzählt, im März 77, als sie auf Hawaii waren. Und da haben Ed Parker, Sam und Tom Moffat, ein bekannter Journalist, auch damals, also der auch das Aloha vom Hawaii-Konzert sozusagen promotet hat und begleitet hat auf Hawaii, haben sich nochmal die Arena angeschaut, wo Aloha vom Hawaii aufgenommen worden ist. Und er hat dann gesagt, also Elvis könnte hier ja letztendlich eine Woche jeden Abend spielen und er würde diese große Arena jeden Abend voll machen. Und dann, als sie zurückgekommen sind zum Haus, haben sie Elvis erzählt, was sie besprochen haben und was so der Eindruck war. Und Elvis hat gesagt, ja, sagt er, das wäre schön, wenn wir das tun könnten, wenn wir eben nochmal hier hinkommen könnten, um nochmal Konzerte zu spielen. Und Sam ist davon überzeugt, dass auch wenn das nochmal passiert wäre, er eben auch seinen Traum verwirklicht haben könnte, auf Welttournee zu gehen, nach Europa zu kommen und einfach alle Fans auch zu sehen. Und ich glaube, das ist ein schönes Erlebnis nochmal, was man sich nochmal so zurückholen kann. Und damit möchte ich gerne schließen. Und I would like to thank you for spending time with us, for answering the questions, for sharing your memories with us. And yes, thank you very much, Linda, Ed, Sam. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.